then I really began to realize it doesn't matter how much money you make. It's really your capacity to take your creativity and stop trading time for money. It's the worst trade in the world. Everybody's a financial trader.
Yeah.
They don't realize they're a trader. They're trading time, and you can't get more time. So this book is how to take anybody, an average person, a millennial just getting out of college with a bunch of debt and saying, how do I really make this work? Or a baby boomer saying, how do I still retire? And the way I did it was I said, I want to interview 50 of the most brilliant financial people in the world. Because most people don't know that I've been working with Paul Tudor Jones, one of the top 10 financial traders in history, for 21 straight years, and he hasn't lost money in 1 year in 21 years.
Right.
We made money in the tech blow up that happened in 2000 and 9/11. In 2008, when the market was down 51% from top to bottom, he made 28% positive, right?
Incredible.
So every day, literally, he emails me, I monitor him, I come see him, I work with him, and he pays me 7 figures a year to be able to do this, and I've been able to continually help him go to the next level. But quite frankly, I've learned more from him, I think, than I could ever teach him.
Right.
And he helped me open these doors. So this book is the best from every self-made billionaire that I could find. Carl Icahn, I mean, I'm sitting down with this guy. He just made $2 billion in the last 18 months off a $30 million investment off Netflix. He sent an email or a tweet out about Apple saying it was undervalued, and became, and 2 hours later, it was worth 17 billion more by a tweet.
Wow.
So the people I've got to hang with over the last 3-4 years have been, I've got a PhD in finance from the people controlling the world's finance. And what I've tried to do is, the reason I did that is make it simple, bring it so I could train anybody else. Because in this business, what you don't know will hurt you financially. So I want to know how to protect people and how to help people maximize. And that's why I did the book.
It's incredible. And what I want to know is why we weren't taught these things growing up.
Me too. Tell me.
Right? So if they were like, okay, Tony, we're giving you the key to the education system.
Yeah.
And how would you apply, what teachings would you apply into about finances, learning about this, how to generate wealth as opposed to trading time for money, but really leveraging it and investing it the right way? What would you start implementing?
Well, the first thing you want to teach anybody, a child, a kid, anybody, is that you'll never earn your way to freedom. You just don't. You look around and you see, Kurt Schilling, if you remember from Boston Red Sox, made $100 million a year. He's broke, bankrupt. I asked Warren Buffett, I said, what made you the wealthiest man in the world? And he smiled and he said 3 things. He said, living in America, great opportunities, having good genes, so I lived a long time, and he said the last thing is compounded interest. And we all know about compound interest, but I give the example in the book of this guy, Theodore Johnson, worked for UPS, never made more than $14,000 in income in his entire life in a year. And in old age, he was worth $70 million. And how did he do it? All he did was he took a percentage of his income. His percentage was 20%. Now, his family said, we can't save any money. But he met a friend who said, if you pretend there's a tax, and the tax just took the money away from you, and you never see it, the money just comes out of your account and goes in an investment account, you'll be financially free. And so he was disciplined. He didn't look at it. It happened. $70 million by compounding.
Now, you've coached some of the world's greatest athletes, former presidents, biggest CEOs. Who coaches you? I've had a lot of people asking me to ask you this question. Who mentors you, who coaches you today?
I have always looked for people that were playing the game at a different level than I am and or knew the road ahead. I always tell people, anticipation is power. If you ever play a video game against a child, it's pretty disastrous, right? Maybe not for you. You're maybe a different generation. But for me, it's like, it's not the kid is faster and smarter. If they played this game before, like 8 million times. So they know the first shot's here, the second shot's here, the third shot there, and you're like reacting. So when you're reacting to things, you fail. So my mentors have been people over the year, different people. My earliest mentor was a man named Jim Rohn. He was a personal development speaker, just touched my life. Then I was involved in neurolinguistic programming, NLP, when I was, 21, 22, 23 years old. I became partners with a man named John Grinder, brilliant man, co-founder of that. But in my last couple decades, it's been people like Peter Guber, who owns the LA Dodgers and owns the Golden State Warriors NBA team, and he's just brilliant. He's got 52 Academy Award nominations. So he's a mentor for me. Paul Tudor Jones, I coach, but also I'm coached by him because we get to pitch and catch. And then, I've got some people in my life that, like Steve Wynn is a dear friend of mine, built most of Las Vegas.
He's brilliant.
And these guys are all 18 years my senior, so they know the road ahead. And I'm able to learn from them in advance and then kind of anticipate things. And that, to me, is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, very cool. Now, I want to ask you how you personally handle a breakdown. Because I've been to your workshop. And incredible experience.
Thank you.
And you teach people how to overcome their fears and how to handle breakdowns, but how do you personally deal with it? And do you even have any breakdowns?
Yeah, they sent me a list of questions you had just to kind of give me a peek, and that was one of the questions, and I was like, it's interesting. It's breakdowns, it's certainly not something I experience, but it's not because I'm so talented or so brilliant or so fearless, it's just you're like an athlete. You're an athlete.
Yeah.
You're in shape, right? You're not going to have a reaction in your body like somebody who doesn't take care of themselves.
Right.
So, I don't believe in emotional intelligence. I think it's useful, but I'm more interested in emotional fitness because intelligence is a capability. Fitness is a state of readiness.
Interesting.
If you are fit, you can take that demand right now and you can deal with it. You can deal with that physical stress, that emotional stress. Same thing's true with psychological fitness, emotional fitness, right? So I'm pretty fit, and part of that is not because I'm so smart. Part of it is that I've taught this for decades. I remember I had a woman who came to one of my seminars in her, I don't know, early 80s probably, and she would run in this room, 10,000 people. I think it was, she went a couple of 10,000 person events, and she would get in this front row and fight her way through there. And she'd jump and go for it. And at one break, she came up to me, I was signing a book for her, and she says, she goes, Mr. Robbins, I've seen you at like 8 of these. She goes, I've seen you like when you're really, I know, I can hear your voice, you're hurting or you haven't slept. And she goes, you always seem to be so up all the time. How come you're so up? And I said, well, part of it is I attend all these seminars. So I'm teaching it. So there's a fitness of that. But there's also, I've buried 3 fathers and 1 mother, and that affects your life. I've had a physician look me in the eye and say you have a tumor in your brain.
Wow.
And so I've had those moments that when you've had extreme stress and you push your way through it, you build psychological muscle. It's like it takes a lot to knock me off. In the early days, we didn't have $50,000 to keep the doors open. How do we do it? Then I had graduated to $5 million. I graduated to a partner of mine who kind of didn't do things well, and I ended up owning $100 million because I had to take on his debts. $100 million. But when you do all that stuff, now my companies do $5 billion, a year. So you keep expanding what I would call really the circle of the threshold of your influence.
Sure.
Everybody has a threshold of control, and if you get beyond it, you kind of freak out. So it takes a little bit more. I can't.
So you don't have breakdowns.
I don't have a breakdown. I mean, do I get pissed off or get frustrated or tired? Yeah, but a breakdown, honestly, no.
So how do you handle it if you get tired of something?
I sleep when I can.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it's pretty simple. But when I've had challenging times, I mean, I have so many tools.
Yeah.
I
doesn't happen.
I pull them out, and mostly it's just like you as an athlete. You don't just physically break down.
Right.
You take care of yourself. So
you're constantly training that.
I think
muscle.
most people don't train their mind and emotions. It's like I think the most powerful muscles to me are not physical. They're as strong as important as they are. It's like faith is a muscle, courage is a muscle, determination is a muscle, playfulness is a muscle. Passion unexpressed weakens. Faith untested gets smaller. Yeah. So I'm always, I call it deep practice. I'm always pushing myself to the edge, and pushing yourself to the edge makes you stronger.
Yeah. In the book, I was really excited to hear you talk about. You say the secret to wealth is gratitude. Somewhere in the book it says that. And I think maybe it was someone else you were referencing.
Yes, it came from Sir John Templeton.
And every day I practice gratitude. When I wake
wonderful.
up, and every night I always try to say to my girlfriend or someone I'm talking to before I go to sleep, 3 things I'm most grateful for.
That's great.
Now why, so I was pleased to see that. I was like, I'm on the right track if I'm living in gratitude, but why is that the secret to wealth?
Well, Sir John Templeton is probably one of the greatest investors in history. People don't know his name. He started out with nothing. He wasn't Sir, he wasn't from another country, he came from the U.S. And he decided that he wanted to understand wealth, and so he saved $10,000, a huge amount of money in those days. And when Hitler invaded Poland, he developed a belief. And his belief was, you make your money in times of maximum pessimism. Like if you were around in 2008, 9, you remember what it was like, right? Yeah. You could have bought, the Sands in Las Vegas, you could have bought their stock for $2.28. Today it's $67.
Wow.
It's a 3,000% return.
It's not bad.
You could have bought Citibank for less than $1, right? So people in those times, he understood that. And so what he did was, and everybody thought the world was going to end, he took $10,000, he bought every stock on the New York Stock Exchange that was $1 or less, including companies everybody thought were going bankrupt. But when things are bad, people think it's going to be bad forever. When things are good, they think it's going to be good forever. And they're always wrong. Life's cyclical. So there's a season for everything. So once we got through World War II and a few years later, guess what? Those same stocks made him a billionaire. So when I asked him, I said, what's the secret to wealth? His response really touched me. He goes, you know it, you teach it. I said, what's that? He said, gratitude. And I said, why do you say that? He said, because if you got $1 billion and every day you live pissed off and frustrated, the quality of your life is called pissed off and frustrated.
Right.
But if you have nothing, but you're euphorically grateful for whatever you have, you're the richest person that you're going to know. He said, so it doesn't matter how much money you got if you don't have gratitude. Yeah.
Now, I think I also read in the book, I don't know if you said this or someone else said this, but the key to living is giving.
Yes.
Now, I think I might have heard you say this actually back when I first saw you when I was 16 at an event. And I remember thinking, I don't have anything to give. I don't have any money. You know, how am I supposed to invest my money?
Yeah.
10, 20% every month. And then how can I give on top of that?
Yeah.
But I really understood that, you know, it's so valuable and important to give. And I work with a lot of nonprofits myself, building
wonderful.
schools for kids around the
That's
world.
wonderful.
And I've seen a big impact in my life in the way I'm able to serve people.
Sir John Templeton told me that he's never seen anyone tithe, which, you know, tithing is usually 10% of what you earn, for at least a decade, who didn't become incredibly financially free.
Wow.
And I think the reason is, I had a moment like when my whole life changed. It was kind of twofold. I was really young, like yourself back then, right? Working my tail off, trying to build a business. And you have big goals, you know, you don't always succeed to start with. It doesn't just come together, right? You know, it was hard. And I remember I was so frustrated because I was working 18-hour days and nothing was working, and I was broke, and I felt embarrassed, you know, I should be doing better than this.
Sure.
And so I was driving home from Orange County on the 57th freeway in San Gabriel Valley, out near a place in Pomona, California. It probably doesn't matter anybody else, but I can remember it so vividly because it was almost midnight. And I was at this breaking point. And then I was like, why am I not, you know, doing better? And then I just pulled over the road, and I used to keep these journals. I still have them, written journals. And I wrote in big lines, you know, the secret to living is giving. And I started to cry. And I realized, I am so focused on what am I not getting.
Receiving.
I'm not focusing on what I'm giving.
Yeah.
So for 6 months, man, it turned me around. But then, you know, something else to get in your body. It was in my head, it was in my heart, but it had to get in there to stay. And I started going through some really tough times, and I lost everything financially. And I was mad at everybody because, like, I'd loaned a friend $1,000, and, you know, I'd been doing well, and he didn't even return my phone call.
Oh.
And what changed me was I was down to, I don't know, 22, 23 bucks, something like that. I don't know, it was $24. Enough that I knew that I didn't have money for food for the next week, clearly. And I didn't have any prospects. And I was living in Venice in this 400 square foot bachelor apartment, feeling sorry for myself, getting pissed off. And I thought, you know what, I got to eat. So I'm not going to drive my car because I'm not going to spend the gas. I'm not going to pay for parking.
Sure.
I'm going to go to an all-you-can-eat place and load up for the winter, right? So I can get more, like one meal a day.
Right.
And so there's a place called Marina del Rey, not far from Venice. And it's a beautiful community, and it's right on the water. And there's a place called El Chorrito. It's still there. It's a little restaurant. It had taco bar and all that kind of stuff. So I walked there for the 3 miles, and I go, okay, I'm going to go and load up. And it was all about myself and getting through this. And this woman walked through the door, actually a very attractive lady. That's probably why I caught my attention. And I'm waiting to see who her boyfriend is, and there's nobody up there. There's a little guy down here. It was obviously her son. And he's wearing this 3-piece suit, you know, a little vest. He opens the door for her. He pulls out the chair for her. And it was just, he stared into his mother's eyes. I mean, it was just pierced into her eyes. I don't know what it was. It was something about him was just so moving. He was such a sweet, caring, loving young man to his mother that moved me. So I paid for my meal. I don't know what was left, 17, 18 bucks. Put it back in my pocket, was left. Walked up to this young man, introduced myself, and I said, hi, I don't remember his name. I think he said his name was Ronnie. And I said, Ronnie, I said, you're a class actor. I saw how you opened the door for your lady. I saw you held out the chair for your lady. He goes, she's my mom. I said, that's even more classy. Right? And I said, so cool that you're taking her out to lunch like this. And he goes, well, I'm not really taking her lunch because I'm just 11 and I don't have a job, you know. Right. I said, yes, you are. And I had no plan. I just reached in my pocket, took all the money I had, changed dollar bills, and threw it right there in front of him. He looked at me like this. He goes, I can't take that. I said, sure you can. He said, well, why? I said, because I'm bigger than you are. Right? And he got this big grin on his face. His eyes got this big. And I just shook his hand. I didn't even look at his mom. And I just walked out the door. But the reason I tell you the story is I had no car. I had no money. I was euphoric. I was like flying home. I was like, you know, I probably looked like an idiot, probably skipping or something. I mean, I was just, and what I felt was, I should have been like, what the hell did you just do? I have no meal. What are we going to eat? Right. I went home that night, I laid out a plan. And the plan was going to take me, 10 days, 2 weeks. So I thought, well, people fast for a week. I could fast for a week, that type of thing. And I have this great mindset about it. And I woke up the next morning, and I get the old regular snail mail shows up. And it's this guy I've called a zillion times who wouldn't return my call. I open it up, there's a check, $1,000 plus interest and an apology. Wow. So I'm sitting there, and I started to cry, honestly. And I was just like, why did this happen, And I don't know if it's true, but I decided that day this happened because I did the right thing. Because I didn't have a plan. It wasn't a strategy. I just felt this little soul beside me. I knew it was right, and I did it. And I didn't do it because I thought I could or I couldn't. I didn't even think about it. And that's the day I became a wealthy man, because I didn't have any money, but scarcity left my body. And I had plenty of ups and downs since that time in various times in my life, but I never went back to that, oh my God, how's it going to happen? Yeah. It's like breathing. Do you stop and say, God, is there going to be any air before you take a breath? You
Right.
know it's going to be there.
Right.
You don't run your life by that
Right.
aspect. And so that to me is what it's about, is showing people, if you won't give a dime out of a dollar, don't bullshit yourself. You'll never give $1 million out of 10 million or
Right.
10 million out of 100 million. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But if you can do that now, you don't ever get beyond scarcity. You start behind it. You make a decision to get beyond it.
So how does someone, when they're living in scarcity, they're living in fear,
Yeah.
and it's like this emotional feeling, it's in your body, like
Yeah.
you say, when you're
Yeah.
like, I can't even pay for my meal, how am I
Yeah.
gonna start giving? What are some things that people can do to start overcoming that mindset or start strengthening it or shifting it so that
I'll tell you
they're
a couple
not
things.
living?
I'll tell you what I did when I was first on my own. I got my mom kicked my dad out when I was 17. She was a very powerful woman. I had 4 fathers, so they all learned how to get the boot. She thought I was on his side, so she kicked me out next. I was 17. She chased me out with a knife. She wouldn't have hurt me, but I wasn't going back in the room.
Wow.
And so I had to figure out what to do. And I didn't have a place to stay, and I ended up staying in somebody's laundry room for a while, and then I started reading and feeding my mind, and then I developed this little system, and the system was really simple, and I tell people now, as I say, number one, every single day, you got to feed and strengthen your mind. Until you do that, you're always going to be in fear. Because fear is automatic. The human brain is designed for survival. It's not designed for success. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. That's your job.
Right.
And the only way you're going to do it is if you feed your mind, because otherwise, weeds grow automatically. My coach, my mentor, Jim Rohn, used to tell me, he said, Tony, every day you got to stand guard at the door of your mind. You got to watch what's going in, because if you're not careful, stuff will go in. And he said, not all the times it's somebody who cares about you. He said, if your
family.
if your worst enemy
Yeah.
puts sugar in your coffee, he said, what happens? I said, you got sweet coffee. He goes, what if your best friend by accident or your family don't mean to? They drop 1 drop of strychnine in your coffee, you're dead. He said, so life, sugar, and strychnine, and watch your coffee, right?
Right.
So every day I decided, I'm old enough, honestly, there was no internet those days. I'm pretty ancient. I used to go to the library because it's the only place you go. And I'd read biographies. I'd read people's lives, and it'd make me go, wait a second. As bad as I think it is, the greatest people in the world had it worse.
Sure.
So there's something here. So you feed your mind. Jim Rohn used to say to me, skip a meal, but don't skip reading. He said, read 30 minutes a day. I don't give a damn what it is.
Wow.
And today, I don't mean internet crap. I mean, read something, a biography, read something that's a strategy, read something that's going to change your life. And the second thing I tell people is feeding your mind's great, but you got to also strengthen your body. And you do that as an athlete naturally. I learned to do that because fear is physical, right? You know where you feel it. And if you go work out, if you go lift, if you go run, even if you're out of shape, you just go for an intense walk, that experience alone changes you. Like every day of my life, the first thing I do before I do my priming, if I'm at one of my homes, I jump in some hot water for fun, and then I jump in freezing water. And I have, a river, in one of my homes in Sun Valley, and I've got cold plunges everywhere else. So I go in 57-degree water, boom. And what it does is it's teaching my brain, I tell my brain what to do, and it does it. It doesn't feel like it, doesn't want to do it, and every cell in your body is alive, right? So it doesn't have to be 2 hours worth of something. It can be something you do for 30 seconds, but it's training your body to be strong, because a strong body creates a strong mind and vice versa.
Yeah.
The third thing I tell people is find a role model. It seems impossible until you see somebody who's done it. So, Ray Dalio is one of the greatest investors in history. The guy was a caddy, right? His dad was a jazz musician. His mom was a homemaker. He's worth $14 billion.
He found someone to mentor him.
He found multiple people to model. Right. You don't always find a mentor, but you find somebody you can model. And when you start seeing that somebody else can do it, and you see they really did, you start to believe, you start to get certainty. And then the fourth thing I tell people is it's massive action and constantly change your approach. And then it's find somebody worse off than you are and help them. Because when you do that, it gets you out of yourself.
Now, talking about feeding the mind,
Yes.
if you could only leave 3 books behind, it's the end of your life.
who?
3 books behind to your kids.
Yes.
And or the message to the world of here's the 3 most important books that you should read.
That's tough.
What are those 3 books that
all the books I've read through?
You can only pick 3.
God. That's a tough one. I don't know if I can do that, but I'll tell 3 off the top of my head. I'd say Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, because all of us in our lives are going to experience extreme stress. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how many people love or respect you. You'll have your time. It might be a health issue in your family. It might be something happens to the economy. There's something happens to all of us. And so to see how people that were put in the most insane, unjust environment, people that were in Auschwitz, how they dealt with that unbelievable situation, and how the ones that thrived in spite of it, and to go through Viktor Frankl's way of understanding how to create meaning in your life, I don't think there's a more important book. I think maybe another one might be As a Man Thinketh, because it's a book that you can read dozens of times in your life. It's small, and it's the core of everything. As you think, so you are. I mean, obviously the Bible is an extraordinary book, or whatever religious document a person believes. I'm personally a Christian, but I tell people whatever you believe, you need to practice it. So I look for things to go deep in, and I think in our lives, there's a few areas that matter. Your body, your emotions, your spirit, your relationships, your economics, your business. Those half dozen or so areas I like going deep in, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Sure.